Hi, I'm Priscilla, but everyone calls me Scylla. I'm an 8-year-old Dachshund. You know, a sausage dog. And I live with my mum, Amy. We have so much fun together. I have so many toys, and I have some great friends. We go to the beach, to the park, and we cuddle all the time. Oh yeah, and apparently I'm special because I have this thing called epilepsy.
It's okay.
Baby, you okay?
Okay, Dex. It's okay, my darling.
When Scylla was 2 years old, we were sat here on this sofa, just having a night in, a couple of friends round, and Scylla started shaking and she went quite rigid, and I didn't really know what was happening.
He used to sleep downstairs, and one night in the middle of the night we heard the most horrendous racket, and we didn't know what the hell was going on. So we ran downstairs, and he was clearly having a fit.
Toby had his first seizure just over 2 years ago. It was on June the 27th, early in the morning. We heard this banging noise. I thought it was the rooks or the seagulls on the roof, but Mum shouted and went in, and Toby was lying on the bedroom floor having his very first seizure. I knew it was a seizure straight away.
We didn't know what caused it, we didn't know what was going on, furniture was going everywhere. And when he saw us, he started barking at us and snarling at us, clearly didn't recognise us. It was the most horrendous situation.
When I found out that my Minpin had epilepsy, I was very lucky that her first seizure happened at my mum's house and she knew exactly what to do. And I think knowing what to do before it happens, so just everyone knowing what to do is really useful. And I don't think many people do know what to do because it's not out there enough, is it? The, epileptic dogs. What do you do?
I said to my friends, what can I do? What's happening to my dog? And they said, we're not really sure what's going on. So we phoned the vet, and the vet said to me, it sounds like she's having a seizure. So I said, what do I do about that? They said, well, see if it carries on, and if it does, then we'll come out to you, but we can probably just see her in the morning, which I thought was a really odd reaction when this was something really big that I'd never seen, that was really quite alarming. But it did stop, and we went to see the vets the next day.
Unfortunately, I didn't know why he was having it or how long it was going to go on for or what was going to happen from then on. But I knew it was a seizure. I just basically had to keep calm him down, and then he stopped. And then we took it from there.
So we tried to get a vet, and the vet just said, bring him over, and we said, well, we can't even get in the room for now. So that seemed to go on forever, and then he calmed down. Eventually we could tell that he recognised us because his tail wagged a little bit.
We went to the vet that day. I phoned him pretty much immediately after he'd had his first seizure. So they were kind of saying, you don't need to come in, he's only had one seizure. Lots of dogs have one seizure, don't have another seizure the rest of their lives. But if you want to come in, we'll check him out, we'll have a look at him. So we went down, and they basically said, he's had one seizure, we're not really going to do much at this stage.
They took some blood tests and went through a series of tests with her just to make sure she was okay, like observations, said that she was fine, and when the tests came back they didn't show anything up either. So they said that it was probably epilepsy or a reaction to something. And then over the next few months she had a couple more. They weren't terribly regular at that point, but just with the accumulation of them it seemed to be that it was probably going to be something that was ongoing.
The best thing to do is just go home and see if anything happens. So went home, 2 days later, started having another seizure. So he went back again, and he had the usual blood tests, like the 4 bloods. He had his thyroid tested just to see if that was affecting it as well.
So fast forward a couple of years, and she'd been having them maybe every 3 months or every couple of months, and then suddenly she started having them monthly. And that's when we decided that we would take her to a neurologist who did an MRI scan, a CT scan and spinal tap. And he also said that he thought that it was epilepsy.
The vet themselves, which I'm at a different practice now, the vet I was with was not very good. They didn't really know anything about epilepsy. The vet wasn't reassuring in any way, not very helpful, I'm afraid.
And that was the start of it. And then from then he's had about a fit every month. Sometimes it goes a bit longer, sometimes when he's stressed it's a bit less. And he's 6.5 now, so it's part of him when we deal with it.
So what actually is epilepsy? It's pretty complex, and there are so many variables to its causes and the treatment of it, but understanding what it is the first step. Epilepsy is a neurological disorder that is characterized by recurrent seizures. It is the most common neurological condition in dogs. This is a neuron, a specialized cell transmitting nerve impulses. If you can imagine, usually in a normal brain, these neurons fire simultaneously, transmitting messages to different regions of the brain. During a seizure, they are highly active, demonstrating high excitability, and could probably be likened to what happens during an electrical storm. Seizures can be caused by trauma, a toxin, a brain tumour, an infection, or an issue with the blood, kidneys, or other organs. There are lots of different types of epilepsy, but we're going to focus on the most common, which is idiopathic, which means that there is no real cause.
Idiopathic is a very fancy term for saying we don't know why. It's just one of those things whereby they show signs of fitting on seizures, and we can run the blood tests, and also we can do MRI scans of the brain to look for lesions, and you can't find anything. So that's why we call it idiopathic. It just happens.
Idiopathic epilepsy can occur in any breed, but it is considered an inheritable disease in many breeds, and in some breeds a genetic basis has been identified.
Although I haven't had a dachshund with epilepsy, I do have a miniature pinscher who suffers. Very common in the miniature pinschers because of the way that they're bred. And I know that it comes in the dachshunds quite a bit as well, but I think actually it's probably more common in the miniature pinschers because they've got tiny little heads.
Commonly affected breeds include Labrador retrievers, poodles, Keeshonds, beagles, German shepherds, dachshunds like me, Irish setters, and cocker spaniels. Dogs diagnosed with idiopathic epilepsy should not be used for breeding. A big problem exists with overbreeding dogs, which can often result in health issues.
It would certainly make sense not to breed from a dog that is epileptic, because as we all know, there is so many dogs in the world already.
So why not seriously consider giving a home to a dog who doesn't have one, instead of adding to this big problem? If you choose to rescue a dog, you may well be given full information about their personality, behaviour and health, because they will have had a thorough veterinary assessment and training plan. If your new family member comes from a breeder, then you must make sure that you have full knowledge of the family history. Visit the pups and their mother and ask if they have been screened for certain medical conditions with any supporting paperwork. Unfortunately, there is currently no test to determine whether a puppy will develop epilepsy later in life, although researchers are working on this.
We have lots of fun together. We're always playing, we go for walks. She's got other friends that she likes to go out with. She's a really, really, really happy dog. So apart from the fact that she's got epilepsy, you just wouldn't know that there was anything particularly going on with her, because she just has a really normal life.
Mum makes sure I see my friends a lot so I can socialise. We also have plenty of walks so I get my exercise. I'm never on my own, And I have loads of toys.
Priscilla and I attend some local fun dog shows for charity and for village fetes and things. These are some of the awards that she's won, rosettes, and sometimes we win little prizes with them too, some toys and things. It's really good fun for her to enter. She makes lots of friends.
So you could say I live a pretty fabulous life. But I know my mum has made sacrifices for me because she loves me so much.
It does have an impact, obviously. The emotional impact on me is probably one of the first things, because seeing a seizure is really not nice. Like I was describing, it's really quite scary to see. And another one of the massive impacts is the financial implications. Obviously, all of her medications cost money, vet's bills cost money, the homeopathy costs money, and I just never really know when we're going to need the vet. Roughly, just with her meds and her foods and maybe a couple of vet's visits, it's about £3,000 every year. And bearing in mind that Scylla's a really small dog, and it can happen to anyone. I think, you know, that's the thing. You just don't know, so you have to be prepared for these things when you get a dog. The other thing that that has an implication with us, and not everyone would choose to do this, is that Scylla is never on her own, because I know how important it is for her to have emergency medication if she has a seizure. If she doesn't get it, then like I said, it can have huge impacts on her brain. And yeah, caused brain damage. So the sooner we get the emergency meds in her, the better. So this means that I only work part-time and just try and make up some extra hours working at home or doing things that Scylla can do with me. She's got babysitters. I'm really lucky that my mum has her a couple of days a week. One of my friends has her while I'm at work. And then we've just got other people that I really trust that will come in, and, you know, it's not an easy thing. There are certain dog sitters that advertise as a professional business that won't look after Scylla because of her seizures, because they're scared of giving her the emergency meds. It's just kind of become something that, although we're not used to, I don't think we'll ever be used to it, it's manageable. So yeah, in our lives, it's something that we can deal with.
Common drugs that are used to control seizures are phenobarbital, libramide, Pexion and Keppra. These are currently the most used. There is also an anticonvulsant called diazepam, which can be used mid-seizure to bring the dog out of it.
The first medication that we were ever given was an emergency medication that we were given by our local vet. This is diazepam, and it's to be given if Scylla has a seizure that lasts over, well, at first we said 5 minutes, now just a couple of minutes, because I know that they do tend to go on for a while.
Yes, we've got rectal diazepam. That's hard work. Emergency med when your dog's fitting and thrashing about a lot like Bentley does, and you need two hands and you've got a big old hairy tail you've got to get out the way, and your glasses are slipping down your face and you just haven't got enough hands and you're stressed.
Normally relaxes her, brings her out of a seizure within a couple of minutes. The longer that seizure's gone for, the more chance there is of damage to the brain, so we just want to stop them in their tracks straight away. If the seizure carries on longer, or if she starts to go into another one, then I have to give another dose of that as well.
But it does work. Rectal diazepam does work, but it knocks them sideways. I'd have to see a fit go on for a few minutes before I would use it. And you need a bigger dose than the vet tells you need. Far bigger dose. And that is really where these Facebook forums come in really handy, and the Guardian Angels pages, because they will tell you per pound what your dog needs to break an ongoing fit. But yeah, rectal diazepam's brilliant stuff in an emergency.
Each dog reacts differently to each drug, and it may take a while to get the right dosage and combination, so you need to keep a diary and have regular consultations with the vet. There is always new research and new drugs popping up on the market.
So medications for epilepsy really depends on the reason in the first place. Okay, so just for example, if we are talking about animal having seizure because of liver shunts, then it well may be that we were talking about trying to resolve the liver shunt if possible, because that may actually be the entire treatment.
Priscilla's seizures got closer together and a bit longer. We decided to put her on medication, and again this was her local vet that started her on these tablets, which are called Pexium. So different dogs do react differently to different medications, and sometimes it is a case of trial and error to get medications right.
And even with the phenobarbital, we've had to up his dose regularly to keep it under control. So he's on some quite large doses now, but he's not on any cocktails of drugs yet, which I'm really pleased about. So at the moment, touch wood, he's quite well controlled.
Pexium worked for us at first. She started on about half a tablet every morning and every evening. She's now on 1.5 morning and evening. They have to be given 12 hours apart. So we stick to quite a good routine with these, don't we?
The actual seizures is the symptom, so if he's not having the seizures and he's not ataxic from the drugs, we don't really have to manage anything. We're just giving him his medication on a daily basis. But his seizures vary from, at the moment we've gone the longest we've ever gone and he hasn't had one for a few months. Sometimes he can have 4 in 24 hours, sometimes maybe 1 a week, 1 a month.
The Pexium helped to increase the gaps in between her having seizures from what was a couple of weeks to a month to about 3 months. Then she started having them a little bit close together again, and when we went to see our neurologist, he started her on another medication called Libromide. So she has these, now she has a whole one every day. She just has them in the evening after food. She started off with about 1/4 of a tablet, but as we've reviewed things, they've gone up to more.
The day starts at 6 with Toby's first lot of medication. So medication kind of is, it doesn't rule the day, but we have to have his medication at the same time every single day without fail.
Bentley's daily routine: get up at 7, go for a quick walk round for about 20 minutes. He gets back, he has his morning tablets, he has his breakfast. I split his meals. He used to get 2 meals a day, and now he gets 4 meals a day. It's the same amount of food, and that keeps his blood sugar up. I don't know if it makes any difference, but it makes me feel happier. He gets a long walk at lunchtime, and he gets another walk in the evening. He's quite a spoiled dog, really. He gets his evening meds, and once he's had his evening medication, we go for a short walk. That's him out for the night then. You can tell once it's kicked in, he tends to get quite tired.
We've seen a holistic vet recently, mainly because I just want to make sure that as time goes on, we're not giving her so much medication that actually there's nowhere to go with it, because she's still relatively young for adaptation.
Alternative therapy is actually quite popular these days. Taking a holistic approach so that you're tackling the problem in every area of our life seems to make a lot of sense, doesn't it? In the same way that veterinary medications can affect each dog differently, alternative therapies may help some dogs more than others. Common therapies include CBD oil, which has recently been talked about a lot for treating epilepsy in new humans, essential oils, homeopathic remedies, Reiki, T-touch and acupuncture.
Whether there are any alternative therapies out in the market for epilepsy, it really depends on why is a dog epileptic in the first place. For example, if the dog has a seizure because of stress, then certainly any sort of products that we can give to help to reduce or manage the stress may be helpful, like supplements and things like that.
Generally, I'm a big fan of alternative therapies, but I've tried a lot of them with epilepsy, and what I've found is that they work for a short time, and it's almost like, and I know this is ridiculous, but it's almost like the condition evolves and it goes, okay, I'm used to that, I know how to deal with that, and I can overcome it. So you need to keep changing with it. And that's what I found with all of the alternative remedies. They may have worked for a short time, but not in the long term.
The holistic vet has made a number of recommendations, including stripping everything that Priscilla has of chemicals. So we don't vaccinate. In America, if you have an epileptic dog, then they actually have a certificate so that they don't have to be vaccinated because chemicals are a known trigger. And one of Priscilla's biggest seizures to date, where she actually had a few in succession, or like one after the other, was because she just had her vaccination. So we don't vaccinate. We've stopped with any of the chemical flea treatments and worm treatments, so she just has herbal remedies in her dinner, and she gets sprayed with apple cider vinegar.
I think in common with most dog owners, I wanted to go down the natural route first because I'd done all the research and I didn't want drugs that were going to cause him damage in later life. So I tried the homeopathic remedies. I tried a magnetic collar, which was great because he had a fit while he was wearing it. I tried supplements, I tried changing his food, I tried it, you name it, I tried it. And none of it worked. The only thing that does keep it under control is phenobarbital. And as much as I didn't want to use it, it has by far been the best treatment for him. So I would recommend to other people, don't mess about. Don't mess about with it, just do it. Don't put yourself through the stress of these fits all the time, you don't need to do that.
Her food is all fresh food, and he also put her on some homeopathic medications. So one of them is to detox from chemicals, and one is an anxiety buster. So his take on it was that out of all the dogs he sees, 20% are actually epileptic and 80% are reacting to stresses and chemicals in the environment, which does make a lot of sense because there is a lot around, apart from, like I said, the chemicals that we actually subject them to from the vets that are recommended. There's obviously the chemicals around the house that you have, so everything that we use is eco-friendly, or where possible I'm just washing things with like water and vinegar, just keeping things as simple as possible. I don't use perfume or anything like that. So yeah, we just at the moment are keeping things chemical free and seeing how that goes.
Since seeing a holistic vet and addressing changes to my diet, amongst other things, we have seen the biggest drop in the frequency of my seizures.
First of all, don't panic. What is quite useful would be actually, and this is not easy, to measure the duration of the seizure, because that will provide some useful information for your vet surgeon when you actually report it in the first place. The first time when your dog is suffering from a seizure, it can be quite dramatic, and for an owner who has not seen or handled this sort of situations before, it can be quite traumatic. Usually my advice would be it is more traumatic for the owner than the animal itself, because when actually having the fit, they're actually not really feeling too much because their brain is somewhere else.
So I think just staying calm around the dog so that when it's coming back is the most important thing. And then moving forward, just making sure you are calm when your dog is having a seizure.
We avoid rosemary like most owners. We don't know if it's a definite trigger. However, he was in a rosemary bush at my brother's once and then he did have a seizure straight after. So we think it's a possible link, but we don't know. We just keep away from any chemical we don't need to be, like flea treatments, tick treatments, vaccinations, and anything artificial in foods, really. So just keep him on a natural diet and keep him away from as many chemicals as possible.
Try to reduce any stimulus if possible, any excessive stimulus like bright lights or loud music, or any sort of loud noises really. So example, if there is people shouting or children playing in a room, it may be best to leave the animal in peace, in quiet, and potentially preferably in the dark. My other advice is just be quite careful when you are approaching them, because when they're actually having the seizure, they are not exactly themselves. So some dogs, they may snap, some dogs they may bite, not because they mean to, but just because they could not help it.
If you've got a good vet, listen to your vet, but most importantly, trust yourself. You know your dog better than anyone else knows your dog, so you do what's right for your dog.
Certainly your first port of call is the vet, if you have any concerns about seizures. Your dog will be given various tests and may be prescribed diazepam to have on hand in case you need to administer this during seizures, as well as a medication to help keep them under control. Writing a seizure diary is a must, and you can also note any reactions to prescribed medications. It's really important to have regular consultations with the vet. Seek the advice of a neurologist and perhaps also a holistic vet. This really helped me. Provisions can be made with pet insurance or savings put aside for all possible health eventualities.
For people that are not able to afford either a workup or a medical treatment for these particular individuals, it is difficult. It is very difficult and very challenging. If they can find out what causes the dog to fit in the first place, it well could be that they try to avoid it and hence reduce the incidence.
Found a group on the internet called Epilepsy Canine. It's an American-based group. They also got an email group. They've got people. They've actually got someone in Scotland with a dachshund as one of the members, and she's offered me so much advice because I think she's had 3 or 4 dogs now with epilepsy. So I do tend to refer to them more than the vet because I don't find the vet that useful.
The most support I've ever found is actually on the internet. There's a website called Guardian Angels, which is for people who have epileptic dogs, and that is a mine of information. It's fantastic. And there are various Facebook pages as well, which you need to be a bit careful about, obviously, but there are some really educated people on there, and I've had a lot of good advice from those forums. So I would say to anybody who's got an epileptic dog, go onto the forums, read, pay attention, and then pick out the bits that work for you.
Thanks to the work of some amazing charities, there is support out there, and they can provide resources and guidance. Sometimes the vet can't give you the support or time that you need, so these charities, who are often founded by people that have cared for an epileptic dog, can fill in the gaps. It can be very overwhelming for carers, and they need all the support they can get. And chatting to other people with epileptic pets can really help. My mum often chats on Facebook's Canine Epilepsy UK.
There are a few charities, but this is really case-to-case basis that some owners would have to go and approach them to see whether they will help with in terms of support or funding for vet care. Charities like, sometimes even RSPCA helps, the Margaret Green Foundation, and various animal charities, which is, there's quite a lot really. I only can ask people to make that effort to actually take the first step, because some charities may just sympathize with a particular individual and hence are able to help. But I do not think many charities advertise in general to say that we help all people with funding difficulties. For most obvious reasons, it's not very sustainable.
So if you were to have a charity for people who have dogs that maybe are suffering with epilepsy, especially if they're older, because actually insurance doesn't cover them past a certain age anyway, then maybe even if they can just be a stopgap for someone who's trying to raise a bit of money for their dog, or someone who's can't get a credit card to help straight away while they find out what they can do. It doesn't mean they have to fund the epilepsy long term. I think a charity would be amazing for that, just a stopgap to just help people in that panicky moment when the initial funds come out. And then they can always pay back or support the charity by running fundraisers or whatever they can do.
I'm so excited. I'm going to a party today to see all my friends, and it's going to be fabulous. I've heard there might even be cake.
We are 14 months seizure free. Woohoo! So Scylla's doing really, really well. She's had no signs of seizures at all. She's been really happy, really healthy. She's doing really well. So we're feeling really good. I'm really positive, looking forward to the future. Hopefully she's going to stay seizure free. I mean, that is the absolute hope. But I know if she were to have a seizure that we've got some extra things that we can do now. Speak to our holistic vet again. I mean, she's still on veterinary medication as well, her Pexion and Libromide. I did speak to my local vet and the holistic vet about bringing this down, like reducing it. However, although they're kind of behind me with it and think that it would be fine because of the fact that she's not had a seizure for so long, and it's other things that seem to have contributed to that, they've also said that because it's so ingrained in her system, there would be a chance that she could obviously have a seizure. It's all a bit of a gamble. So I'm probably at this stage not confident enough to start reducing. Maybe if we get another couple of years down the line, as long as it's not hurting her, she's not got majorly bad side effects from the vet medication, then I think for now we'll stay on it, and we'll have all these other little changes that have helped too.
Well, yes, it's nearly time for me to go to the party. Oh, and before I leave, I just want to reassure everyone who may have a dog who has seizures that although I do have some special needs, I am really happy and very loving. I know that I am also loved and understood, which is a big reason why my seizures have become less frequent. Still, every dog is different, and you can really help them all by sharing this video with friends, so that between us we can create a greater awareness of canine epilepsy and how to address each individual's needs. Now then, time for that special doggy cake and all those party games. Oh, thank you all so much for listening to my story. Please share the information, and I'll be in touch again soon with lots and lots of paws, barks, hugs and loves. Bye! Hehehe